The vast majority of people don't need that. I don't need that. I'm not trying to get that many calories in a horse in a day.
Right.
So I just rode this horse. We actually just did a video of her, and in the closing I couldn't remember what her name is, but her name is Dancer. Anyways, while I'm rinsing her off, I wanted to talk about something. I wanted to talk a little bit about feed, and kind of not necessarily my feed program specific, but kind of feeds in general. You see a lot of the bigger companies really pushing these dense feeds, which are very expensive. They're a high calorie feed, and there's more calories per pound, which in some cases you need to get more calories in a horse. Horse at rest needs about 14,000 calories a day. A horse in training, in heavy training, could need up to about 28,000 calories a day. So depending on how hard your horse is ridden, is going to determine how many calories they need. And these denser feeds, some of these feeds are up to like 1,500 calories to the pound, which means a horse at rest needing 14,000 calories. 10 pounds of feed is all they need to maintain all the weight. And then you still have to take into account grazing, hay, all that. Typical grass hays have anywhere from 400 calories per pound if it's a low quality, up to usually about 800 calories per pound for a better quality hay. Some of them will be a little higher, some will be a little lower. That's kind of general. So I can look at a hay and kind of have a rough idea of how many calories per pound. And your horse should eat 2% of his body weight a day in roughage, and that's counting hay and pasture. So if you figure 2% of the body weight in hay and roughage, and then a feed that's up to 1,400 calories per pound, you got to balance that with the work that they're getting. And a lot of people are really going to these denser feeds, and then they're having trouble because they're getting so many calories in the horse in the dense feed that they have to cut back somewhere because the horse gets fat. You don't want to cut back roughage, then you create other problems. So think about what you're feeding your horse. The horses that I feed, I don't care for a real dense, rich feed. I want to be able to feed them a little bit more quantity. Most of the horses here get about a scoop and a half. I have the little plastic scoops, about a scoop and a half of feeding, which is roughly 5 pounds of feeding. I don't really want to feed a denser feed because then I'm getting more calories in the quantity. I don't want to have to cut down my hay because I want to get the roughage in. So I'm not a big fan of these real dense feeds that you see a lot of companies promoting. I'm sure it works in some situations. If you have maybe thoroughbreds or standard breds or something like that that really needs a lot of calories, that's even more than the 28,000 calories a day, you might need something like that. The vast majority of people don't need that. I don't need that. I'm not trying to get that many calories in a horse in a day. Most of the horses here, anywhere from 18 to 24,000 calories a day is about what they need. Some of the more thoroughbred type horses, they're the ones that's up on the upper end. The older horses actually get a little bit more because their body doesn't absorb all the nutrients. I have to feed them a little bit more quantity. And so that's about what I kind of generalizations. Feed is real regional. I feed from a regional mill. You're not going to get it nationwide, kind of in my region. So really talking specifically about brand and type of feed is kind of pointless because what I feed, you can't really get most of the country. But think about how many calories a day your horse is burning, how much it's worked, how many calories a day you need to get into that horse, and the best way that you can do that. The best way that I have found is come up with a number that you're trying to get a certain amount of calories into a horse. Start with your roughage. Depending on the quality of your hay, your quality of your pasture, figure about 2% of the horse's body weight a day. Take an educated guess on the calories for however many pounds they're eating, and whatever the difference is, fill in that difference with your feed. Whether it be a pelleted feed. I'm not a real big fan of sweet feeds. I like a pellet feed. I also feed alfalfa cubes. That kind of depends on what your program is. That's how I regulate more or less calories in a horse, is with alfalfa cubes. Everybody gets the same amount of grain. Everybody gets the same amount of, well, a couple do get a little bit more grain. For the most part, they get about the same amount of grain. They get basically the same amount of hay, and I adjust the calories with alfalfa cubes. So think about that when you're feeding your horse. Think about alfalfa. A lot of people feed alfalfa to a horse that really don't need to be getting alfalfa. I don't have alfalfa in my part of the country, but even in other parts, I've had horses sent back on alfalfa, and I've seen some urinary tract problems from a lot of alfalfa. So just check on it. Put some thought into your feed. Don't just blindly say, what is this person feeding, and match that. Tailor it to your needs and what your horse needs. This is Dancer. I had to look on the board to remember her name. This is Dancer. I'll put a link up here to her playlist. Until next time, thank you for watching. All right, that should give us enough to have something to post on Monday.